things up. I'll just be a minute or so. I'm looking for something to talk about.
Alright, for sure.
Actuating the barrier. The barrier cannot withstand much more. Barrier has fallen. Turn to me.
All right.
Oh,
Last time, did we go over No Man's Land usage?
I don't think so.
Don't think so. Okay, then we'll cover that over this after this game is over. For the moment, though, just remember. I think if we went over something, we went over like your ranging. Remember to just stay as away from Ironheart. Right, he's a close range character. You're a mid range character. Like overall with your composition, you're probably gonna want to just play a bit slower, look to get in poke damage, that sort of thing. So just pressure him out. Try not to let him get on top of you. If he's getting on top of you, maybe save rock. Okay. On the rigging test, probably can take like look to, like take high ground, something like that. Give your team high ground control and whatnot.
I think I'm gonna swap after this whole.
Hmm.
Actuating the barrier. Barrier initialized. An enemy appears. A threat emerges.
Yep. All right. So we did go over last time. Just be careful not to get too hyper focused on like the Reinhardt, and just
Mhm.
only shooting at him the entire game. So just be careful about that. Maybe avoid chucking a rock up at Valking Mercy if that's gonna be like an insanely hard shot to hit. That sort of
Mhm.
thing, right? Go for those easier targets. They're Hanzo. They're
Oh, I
oh,
canceled his ult
nice,
there.
very nice.
Oh shit, it's a Genji. Oh well.
We will crush them.
Well.
Yeah. Now the problem there is that Zarya is kind of like a ramp up character. We didn't really have too much time to get back up to full energy. If you're going to use bubble into the dragon. Make sure you stay in the dragon the whole way through. That way you get your maximum value out of your bubble, and you can get up to high energy. If you're ever playing Zarya, getting to high energy is very, very important, because then that's where you're actually able to do things. It's where you're able to actually function and get value and carry potential. So high energy is kind of a must on Zarya.
Mhm.
Face me. Our future will be forged in conflict.
Nice skin.
Yeah, for sure.
When have I not?
Thank you. Also, real quick, I did change my sensitivity down a
Mhm.
little bit from 15 to 12.5, and then my DPI it was at 1,000. I'm playing at 800.
Okay, gotcha. So just a bit of an adjustment then. That would be
Yeah.
15 times 1,000. 15,000 to, you said 12.5 times 800. Yeah,
Mhm.
so that's it's pretty big of a, you dropped it basically by a third. Mhm. Yeah. If you're just sitting there, like, just get like a block into like some of those Hanzo shots. That way you're able to charge up your punch. Yep. Target priority is gonna be a big thing this entire game. We haven't looked at their Hanzo once. We haven't looked at their Mercy too much. We haven't looked at their. I mean, now what are they on? They're on a Kiriko now. Now Kiriko we probably shouldn't be looking at too much. But last game they were on Ana last round, and we didn't look at Ana at all, right? So just once again a bit of target priority in terms of who should we be looking at, especially in Doomfist where we can easily bypass people. Once again, if you're just gonna kind of eat spam, you wanna eat it right. Okay, very nice. I think probably one of the bigger things is like timing your blocks in there. That way you're negating damage, because a lot of times they're kind of taking unnecessary damage. Oh, you missed it.
Yeah, I missed it. I'm not sure where the health
Yeah,
packs are in the.
it was like right where you boosted over to. Yeah, so timing a block, that way you're negating damage while also charging up your super punch as well.
Mhm.
You can use it kind of at the beginning of the fight to charge it up, or as you're engaging and you kind of draw all their attention towards yourself, you can kind of do it as well. Yep. Very nice. So I'm not sure if you did it intentionally there. Are you familiar with how to jump at the end of your punch? Because you've done it on and off.
Not really. Like
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to do it consistently.
Yeah, we can cover it afterwards. Or just note that if you jump at the end of your punch for when you're doing it for movement purposes, it will cancel the punch. Like if you're trying to actually punch someone, don't do it if you're trying to punch someone. But if you're doing it for movement, it will launch you further if you jump at the very end.
Oh, like that,
Yeah,
like that. What I
yeah,
just said.
exactly. Okay.
Oh, we didn't have to use Coast, but okay.
Alrighty. When you're low HP, try to get in the habit of requesting healings. Just gonna get your supports to look at you faster. Get them to pay attention to you.
In hardship, we find strength.
Yeah, watch cover usage very, very far on the open, meaning that like look at the replay here. You just have nowhere to go once they start shooting at you. Means that you end up getting shredded. So always having a wall to stand behind at a moment's notice. Okay.
I had 1 second from bubble.
Yeah. Once again, kind of being a bit careful because you pushed pretty far up ahead of your team and past the Reinhardt, and then ended up getting Bastion, being able to shred you. So being careful about pushing a little bit too far, and then also other thing would be making sure once again just cover usage once Bastion starts melting you.
Well,
Yeah. Make sure you're not pushing in after the fight's lost. So when you see your whole team's dead, trying to getting out just a tad bit sooner. Kind of hesitated before backing up. All right. Once you're very high in energy, don't waste your bubbles on trying to get more energy because you want to be saving for them when they're actually needed. So for defensive bubbles and tanking
mm,
bubbles, right? So if you're anywhere like above like 60 to 80, right, like that, that range, then you can probably start to be a little bit more conservative with them and not just using them to get energy.
oh, the fucking lamp!
Very nice.
Tactical visor activated.
Okay,
Nice.
so with Zarya, you kind of have like a couple steps, right? You gotta get the energy for step one. Step two is staying alive with the energy. Step three is actually doing stuff with the energy, right? I feel
Mm,
like the first couple of fights I saw you on Zarya, you're having problems with getting energy. Then the next couple of fights, you were having problems staying alive after you got the energy, and then after you kind of passed those first two, then you did fine in that last fight with actually applying the energy, right? And that's where you actually
mhm.
got ended up getting kills. We'll go over how to use bubbles a bit more efficiently after we're done here, along with block. How you could be using it better. I think the problem was that like you'd end up using them, and then you would just mismanage your aggression or things like that, and then you'd end up just like dying immediately after getting to 80 energy.
Where are
Mhm.
you going, little friend?
I mean, is this still semi-possible, or is this just gonna be hard? Oh,
For
they're
Sigma?
playing really good. No, I'm just saying, like, just the game.
Oh, I mean, yeah, definitely possible. I mean, anything's possible. I mean, you just kept 3, so you can definitely defend it. Here, we'll discuss it a bit later, but best for holding would either be on the top left or even holding like backwards on point. Would be better positioning than holding kind of forwards like that. And we'll discuss why afterwards.
Defend objective A.
The barrier appears.
Nice grasp.
Barrier is splintering.
Make sure you drop shield when kind of nothing in particular. When you're not blocking too much in particular.
Nice.
Very nice.
We went junk, okay. We're waiting. Oh, it was Sigma, okay.
Actuating the barrier.
Yeah, window costed us.
Yeah, be careful not to drop from high ground unless you have a reason to. No, you're not being able to see them for 2 seconds isn't too much of a reason to.
Barrier is nearly defended. Our barrier is gone.
Ah.
Uh-oh. Now, someone your Hanzo caught it, but be careful because Mercy almost got away with a res there. So gotta watch for res and make sure we're trying to cancel it. Alrighty, let's go over a couple different things here. We're gonna go over matchups when to swap. We're gonna go over block and bubble usage, and we're gonna go over no man's land usage, probably some high ground usage as well. Nice play. Oh, we're also gonna go over some aggression as well. Alright. So I'm streaming if you want to take a look.
Yeah.
Alright. So, when it comes, let's do like bubble and blocking first. When it comes to using bubbles and blocking, right, as we discussed before, it's very, very important on your Zarya and your Doomfist to be landing good abilities. Probably a little bit more important on Zarya, still pretty important on Doomfist, on a character like Doomfist. On a character like Zarya, it's going to be pretty important that you're landing your good bubbles, because landing bubbles means that you both get energy and you get tanking. Right? It's pretty much how you tank on Zarya. It also, and then when you get energy, energy gives you more damage. Damage means kills. Damage means more damage and more ultimates. More ultimates means more kills. More kills means more fight wins. More fight wins means more game wins, right? So basically, the higher energy, the better you're going to have the ability to win with, right? You have more win ability, win capability. So getting good bubbles in is very, very important. When it comes to landing bubbles, firstly, make sure people are looking at you. If they're not looking at you, then damage will not be coming your direction. There would be examples like where you would come into a fight, right? They would all be looking at your teammates. You would come in from around the corner because you're coming back from spawn or something, and you would bubble before. Firstly, make sure that you can see them, right? Sometimes you'd bubble before you could even see them. Sometimes you'd bubble immediately after turning the corner, right? If they're all looking at your teammates, they're not going to instantly turn. it the moment you turn the corner, right? That's the first thing, is make sure that they're looking at you. And past just looking at you, they should be shooting at you. So when you see that you're taking a lot of damage, that's usually a pretty good time to use your abilities. Second thing is you can push forwards a little bit. So when you're bubbling, don't kind of sit back here. Make sure you're ahead of your team. You can even get a little bit more into their face. Just don't push into a spot that's going to get you killed. Like, for example, like you'd have times like where you'd push all the way up here and then be out of both of your bubbles, and then now you're kind of screwed because you're out of bubbles and you're kind of up past your whole team and inside their team, right? So make sure you're not going too aggro, but being a little more aggro when you have your bubbles up means that you're the one they're looking at. Shoot at them, watch their attention get drawn to you first, and then you can bubble second, right? Because shooting at them is going to draw their attention to you. Also, you can stand well. Very, very similar concepts with a grasp as Sigma's. Very similar concepts with Doomfist block. I'd say Doomfist block is maybe a little bit more similar. Come into engagements, and the two times you can kind of use it is one if you're kind of sitting back here and you can use it before you engage, kind of soaking up the stuff at choke, or you can go in, get at you, right? Get them to look at you, and then you can block while you're inside of them, and then you can do something with the block, right? So those are your kind of your options. And often, like sometimes we would not use it, sometimes we would use it and then cancel it, kind of immediately. Sometimes we would use it when we're behind, like when we're further back. Sometimes you use it when there weren't people looking at you. Sometimes you would have people looking at you and shooting at you, and you wouldn't use it, right? Like you'd have, like you'd go in and grab your abilities, or something like that. You'd have like 3 people looking at you, and then you wouldn't end up blocking, right? So look to use it when people are looking at you, more specifically when people are shooting at you, and you're taking a lot of damage, because then you're going to end up getting better ability usage, more damage, and all that jazz. You're going to be able to get a lot more kills if you're getting good blocks in. All that making sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Next, let's talk positioning, no man's land, and high ground usage. So, and to a lesser extent, choke point usage as well. So, when it comes to no man's land and choke, they're very similar in concepts. Have you heard people talking about chokes yet?
I know what chokes are, but not really like in detail. But I know what
sure.
essentially it's what they are.
Yeah, at its core, a choke point is like a funnel, right? It's a tiny little area that their entire team has to kind of funnel through, which makes it very easy for your team to shoot at them, is the idea. So this right here would kind of be like a choke point, right? So if we're defending, and they're having to come through this to get the point, because point's over here somewhere, right? Then this would be a choke point. We can kind of shoot at them. Now, when you're defending it, if you hold up here, well, to win the fight, right? Because no matter, like, fight is always more important than point contention, right? Because you have to win to be able to actually do anything with point. So to win the fight, or to get a kill or two, like to be able to kill you currently, do they have to push through the choke to get to you?
I mean, I'd say yes and no, because they can bypass you easily, I feel like.
What purpose would they have in bypassing you easily? Why would they want to bypass you?
I feel like a Doom or like a Ball can bypass you and just get to your back line. And just kill your back line. Like if you're that far up front, like you were saying, I feel like they can just use a character that can just bypass you and just mess up your back line.
Yeah, that's true. Like if they have something they can get around you easily, then that means that they can get around you. But the other, let's say they don't have something they can get around you. Or let's say your whole team is with you, right? Like they're all here in the choke with you, and you don't have to worry about it. Let's say you have it all planned out. You're going to, if ball goes to touch point, then you have somebody, you have your tracer going and something like that, right? Like let's say that you don't really have to worry about the ball rolling around. Do they have to push through this choke point to get to you?
Well, yeah. I mean, if that's still if it's the only option for them to get the point, then yeah, they do.
Let me once again rephrase and emphasize my point. Not to do they have to get to do if they have to push the choke to get to point? Do they have to push the choke to get to you, your team?
No.
No, because we're in front. We're in the front of the choke, right? They don't have to go through this because we're right here. They can stand right here and shoot at you just fine without needing to go through choke at all, right? So if they're trying to win the fight, there's no necessity for them to push through because they can just sit here to their heart's content until they've drained all your resources or gotten a kill, and then they can push, right? There's no need. Same thing if we're holding in the middle, right? Same exact concept. They can just shoot us from there. But if you're holding on this end of choke, right? If they're holding, if we're holding back here, then to get to us and to get to point, then they do need to push a choke, which puts them in bad positioning. Being in the middle of a choke is bad positioning. That's why if we're holding up here, if you're trying to back up, like let's say they break your shield or you're out of get to shoot at you in it, right? Whereas if you're at the back end of it, now your shield breaks and you just duck around the corner and you're good, right? And then they have to push through this and you can just spam them as they're walking through, right? You can kind of just shoot at them as they're entering it, right? So this is choke point usage. If you're defending it, you hold at the back end, not the middle, not the front, because then they have to push through it to get to you and to get the point. Kind of a both end there. Now, if you're attacking through this, you're going to want to get through it as you don't want to sit in it. You want to get through it as fast as possible and try to use cover on your way in. So instead of kind of maybe doing this wide, the No Man's Land maybe is a better example of this, but instead of doing this wide wrap and then kind of just sitting here, you're going to want to try to bypass it as soon as possible and use as much cover as possible. Now, No Man's Land is very, very similar to choke point usage, except for No Man's Land is just slightly different. No Man's Land is any wide stretch of space where there's not really too much cover. Usually that's going, like if you think any like payload map, usually the path of a payload is usually No Man's Land. If you're following, anywhere that the payload goes, the payload trail, that is a long stretch of space where there's not really any cover. So if you're in the middle of this right here, there's not really any cover for you to go to. It's going to take you multiple seconds to get to it. And sometimes it's even worse than this on actual maps where you're not going to have this off to the side. Like it's just going to be like this long corridor where there's nothing else to do. So same exact concept. If we're defending this, like let's say this is the point here, they come in through the choke, the point's all the way over here. If we're holding up here, well then they don't actually have to go through it, right? They don't have to go through the bad positioning. And in fact, if you turn around, you have to go backwards through this bad positioning because you're the ones who are standing in it. Same thing if you hold in the middle. Instead, what you would want to do is you're going to hold the back end of point and you can hold here, right? And then now they have to push through this entire stretch of space into your team, which means that your team gets to kind of spam at them the entire time while they're pushing through poor positioning. And you kind of get to shoot at them the whole way they walk in. And then once they get closer, then you can kind of engage them. Yeah, attacking, same exact concept. You're going to do it as fast as possible, and you're also going to kind of push from cover to cover if possible, right? So maybe I go from here to over here. Maybe if I need to recharge some abilities, and then I push from over here to over here. Make sure I'm using cover on my...
Cosmically insignificant.
Yeah, no, I got it so far. I'm not sure. I know you told me to remind you about something, but I don't know if you already brought it up.
I told you we're gonna go over when to swap like when and why to swap characters in a moment here. High ground usage. I think last time we talked about cover usage, right? But
Yes, we did.
did we go in depth on high ground?
High ground, I don't think so. You talked about cover, but
Yeah.
in terms of
Well,
like high ground positioning, I don't think so.
Yeah, let's go over high ground real quick then, right? Because when it comes to cover usage, cover is great. Good positioning is the usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover. High ground, the entire thing acts as natural. And for the most part, there are exceptions. For the most part, it acts as natural cover. They see you, now they can't. They see you, you back away, you crouch, now they can't. along the high ground, and then you put them out of your line of sight. So firstly, that's fantastic. That's additional survivability. Then on top of that, 2/3 of the characters in the game can't actually get up to you on the high ground, and without taking the stairs, and that takes a super long time. And then the third that can get to you, most of them need to use abilities, and then that means that now they're down abilities, and that it might end up wasting them, right? And then you back away, and then you're good. Once again, additional survivability, because not as many people can reach you on the high ground. Think as Sigma, how's a Reinhardt supposed to get to you if he's all the way down there? Right? And then you get to go bam, 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 shoot, 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 and Reinhardt can't do nothing. He does squat from down there. On top of that, you have tons of visibility. I can see over here, over here, over here, here, here. But on the low ground, well, I can't see over there too well. I can't see over there, and I can't see any of the high ground, right? So high ground gives you a ton of visibility. On top of all that, it's also good for the enemy team, which means when you take high ground, you contest them. You kind of rip that advantage away from them, and you also give it to the rest of your teammates, because then your teammates get to use the advantage. So you have to think about this in terms of like the numbers as well. Of if you are contesting high ground, potentially you can be ripping it away from 5 of them and handing it to 5 of your teammates, right? So that means that's an advantage for a lot of advantage for you guys, disadvantage for them. So high ground, pretty great positioning as well, right? Not always. If the fight's like a point and the fight is happening all the way over there, then high ground over here is not going to do too much. Make sure the high ground's actually relevant and it's actually in the fight and doing things. But if it's near the fight and it's doing things, then a lot of times high ground's be great. Don't drop from high ground unless you have a reason to. There was one time we were spamming them as they're coming in. They went around a wall for like 2 seconds, and then we kind of dropped, right? But they had to still push because they had to get to point. Like, they were like over here, point's still over here. They have to push. So just stay up on high ground, spam them, and just wait for them to re-peek you, or try to hit them around the wall. No reason to drop yet. Now, if they go and they contest point, then maybe if they're about to cap, then that's the point in which you now need to go and touch, right? You need to go and drop. Or maybe you see an opportunity to get a kill or two, right? Like if you have an opportunity to get a kill or two, maybe that's a reason to drop, as long as it's not getting you killed. So there will be reasons to drop, just not, you don't want to give up your advantage unless you have a reason to give up your advantage. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's talk aggression scaling. So this is basically it's a tool, it's a concept to, and I'm just checking, we didn't go over this last time, did we? I don't think we did.
Probably, I don't think so. I mean,
I don't see it in the notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I don't see it in the notes, so I think we're good. So aggression scaling, right? It's basically a tool of how to think about your aggression. When should you push? When should you back? And the way to think about your aggression is as if it were on a scale. So at 100%, you have super aggressive. At 0%, you have super passive. And 50%, you're kind of neutral. That's where you usually start every fight, because when you start the fight, nothing really has happened yet. So you start off at 50. That doesn't mean that you're sitting there and you're around the corner hiding, and it doesn't mean that you are pushing into their face, right, and trying to go for the kills, right? It's a neutral, so you're doing neutral things. Maybe you're back here, you're going pow pow, maybe you do a little push, maybe you do a little back, right? It's neutral. You're going to take your slider and go up the scale with advantages and with opportunities, and you're going to go down the scale with disadvantages, with danger, and with a lack of resources. You go down the scale. So let's define a couple of those. Advantages and disadvantages, those are pretty, it can get complex, but there's also an easy version of it. So the basic version of advantages, disadvantages is going to be kills, right? Who's up, who's down. If you, let's say, you're watching kill feed, right? Because you should be watching kill feed. And let's say you're up one person, you get a kill. That means that you can get a little bit more aggressive. That's an advantage. So you push from 50 to 60. You get 2 kills, maybe push from 60, 70, right? You get 3 kills, you go from 70 to 80, 4, that's 90, 5, that's 100%, right? You're just going all super aggressive, right? You're just sliding up the scale with your kills. Same thing with disadvantages. You go down the scale with the deaths, right? You're down a player on your team. You go from 50 to 40, you're down 2, you go from 40 to 30, and so forth. right? You go up with kills, you go down with deaths. And like I said before, there are a lot more advantages and disadvantages, but we'll keep it at that for the moment. Next on the list, right, you have opportunities. Opportunities are going to be something like you see somebody who's 1 HP, so you push to finish them off, right? Or somebody's isolated on their own, so you can, once again, push aggressively to finish them. Or you have your ultimate to make a play with, so you make a play with it. Or your whole team's pushing. Things like that, right? And you see an opportunity to make a play. That's where you can get more aggressive to capitalize on the opportunity, because if you kind of just sit there, then the opportunity could go away. Then going down the slider once again, you have lack of resources. Lack of resources are going to be things like your health and your abilities. So your health, if you are 1 HP, you really can't play aggressive at all. If you're 1 HP and you peak, then you could die, and then that's a permanent 0% aggression. You don't want that. You don't want to die. But therefore, you know, what you should be doing instead is if you're 1 HP, you should duck around the corner and just hide until you're able to get healed, right? You should try to get healed up before you push. So you're going to drop your aggression. But on the flip side, you don't necessarily go up the slider if you have health. Like, you're not going to be like, oh, I have 400 HP, let me go up to 100% aggression. That's not really how that works. So it's mainly a if you lack them, you slide down, right? Your shield health is another one of these, right? If you don't have shield, you can't really play aggressive. You can kind of give or take it a little bit. It doesn't really dictate it too much, maybe very minorly. But if you're not going to be like, oh no, I don't have rock, I can't push in, I guess, right? But if you're 1 HP, you will go, oh no, I'm 1 HP, I can't push in, I guess, right? You see the difference there? Then finally, you have danger. Danger is going to be things like, I guess, let me restart there. Danger, like, it can be being low HP, right? But being low HP it usually affects danger level, but it is not indicative of danger level. Like, I can be 1 HP and around the corner and perfectly safe, or I can be full HP and next to a diva bomb and very much in danger, right? Or in the middle of their team and very much in danger. So if you are in danger, a lot of times you want to play more passive until the danger has subsided. So, like, if they're using a lot of ultimates, maybe you want to play a little bit more passive, right? If they're using a BAP window, you're not going to want to push into the BAP window, which you end up doing once or twice, right? Where they're using an ultimate, and instead of just backing up and waiting for it to go away, you end up, like, pushing into it aggressively, right? So that's pretty much aggression scaling. With aggression scaling, note that sometimes you might lock in, but a lot of times you're not gonna kind of hard lock into anything and stay there for extended periods of time. Like, you're not often going to come into a fight and stay at 100% for the next 20 seconds. But what could happen is you might come into the fight and you're at 50%, and then you go, oh, that person's 1 HP, so you push forwards to kill them, and then you get headshot, and now you're 1 HP, so now you just went, over the course of 1 second, from 50 to 100 to 0, right? So it can be very fluctuant, where it's going all over the place. And then sometimes it can be, like, if you have a major advantage and they keep staggering, maybe it will stay up at 100% for a while. It's going to kind of be all over the place, depending on the situation, and that's kind of what aggression is. You're adjusting based off of the situation. It's a lot. Is there any questions on any of that? Does that all make sense to you?
Yeah, no. I got it.
Got it. Alrighty. Yeah. All right. Next thing was swapping, right? When should you be on what? This kind of gets a little bit into, like, team compositions. So why don't I send you a picture real quick over on Discord? Remind me if I'm not mistaken. Are you newish to the game or no? Was I mistaken?
No, yeah, I mean yes/no, because it's like in terms of a lot of the game terms I probably not familiar with, but in terms of like the game itself, I've been playing for a while.
So you've been playing for a while, but you were playing casually up until recently?
Yeah, I've been usually playing a lot of casually, never really got into like comp. I've been playing for a while, just a lot of quick play.
Gotcha. Alrighty. So are you familiar with like the terms like dive, brawl, and spam?
Dive, yes, and then brawl and spam, not really.
Okay, sure. Then let me define these for you. So these are the basic team compositions that have existed, always existed in Overwatch, and probably will exist as far as I can tell, as far as I can see. Probably will for the foreseeable future exist in Overwatch.
Mm-hmm.
In a dive composition, that's you say you already know that that's like your fast
Mm-hmm.
moving target characters, like so think like Monkey, Diva, Ball, Genji, Tracer, Ana, things that can keep up with it, Kiriko, things like that, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna be your dive. Those are dive characters. Brawl
Would
characters. Good.
would Doom be considered dive?
Yeah. He'd be
Okay.
he'd be considered dive. And then note some characters can kind of work in multiple compositions. So Doom would be dive. He'd be good in dive. He would be like okay in brawl, and then he'd be bad in spam. Wouldn't really work too well with spam. Um, and that's kind of how that works out. Now brawl is going to be a fast-paced, close-ranged composition. So that's going. Other terms for this are like death ball or rush. And these are going to be like your Reinhardt, Junker Queen, Zarya compositions, Orisa to an extent now. You have DPS. You have like Reaper, Junkrat, close-range characters. Lucio, Moira, Ana, Baptiste, characters like that work well with Brawl. Spam composition is going to be your far range, slow paced composition. So think like Sigma is probably the staple tank at the moment for a spam. Ramach is kind of in the middle between a Brawl and a spam. He's kind of like, kind of hovering between there. Other ones would be like Roadhog is in there as well with being spammy. Then on the DPS, you'd have characters like Hanzo and any snipers, Pharah, Junkrat, like usually a lot of hit scans, so Soldier, McCree, things like that. Then you have like Baptiste, Zenyatta, Mercy would be the supports within that. So that kind of making sense of which characters make up which composition here. Other terms for spam would be like poke comp, and in the past, double shield has been one of those as well. Now, obviously, there's no two tanks, but all that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So now let's get into a little bit more of how they operate. Now, hybrid is just kind of if you have like it's kind of in between. Usually, hybrid in like a non organized setting is like a negative. Usually, it's more like a brawl, like it's kind of like a death matchy. Everyone's doing their own thing kind of composition. If you're doing that in like ranked, but if you're doing it in like a team setting, then there's some compositions that might end up working being a hybrid. But hybrid's kind of like when you're not on any of the three compositions. And if most characters of your comp are one of these, so like let's say like 3 out of 5 are one of these, then that it's probably leaning more towards that composition. So like 3 to 4 out of 5 is gonna be that comp. But if it's kind of you have like 2 characters of sprawl and 2 characters of dive and 1 character of spam, then you're kind of on a hybrid. You're kind of not really running anything in particular. Now, in terms of how these compositions play, right? How do they want to play? Dive compositions are pretty basic. They start off they're very mobile characters. You start off far away, you dive in close. Usually, that's a pretty rapid process. And the pacing of your composition is kind of going to be it's going to depend. Sometimes your dive can play really fast and just look for picks right away immediately, right? You're just hard diving in, you're going. Other times it can play a little bit slower. You're just looking for a pick to happen, waiting for ults, things like that, and then you go in hard after that. Now,
Mm-hmm.
brawl and spam, these are very one-dimensional and easy, and also very important to understand how they work. A brawl, or I guess let's start with spam. A spam, because, and we've kind of gone over this when we're talking about Sigma, because they are far-ranged characters, they want to take the pacing slow, and you want to play a far range. If you're a far-range character, you don't want to play close,
Mm-hmm.
unless you have significant advantages, right? because if you're playing close and they're on better close range characters, then you're just giving them needless advantages. Your advantage is that you're far range, so play at far range. You therefore want to take the pacing slowly, because then if you're, let's say you're Sigma v Reinhardt, right? A spam character versus a brawl character, and just think of the compositions that line up with them. If you're playing far away, then Reinhardt can't touch you, and if the slower you go, the more time you have to spam him out and just go pew pew bam bam, and then he can't do anything about it. Now, if you flip flop this and you go over to brawl side, now let's say you're the Reinhardt and you don't want to let them do that. You want to play fast, you want to play close, so you're trying to run as fast as possible, so then they can't just spam you out, and you're trying to get in on top of them because you're not doing anything if you're not in your swinging range. So therefore, you get in on top of them, and then if you're in a brawl v spam, the team that wins is the team that plays their part better, right? If brawl catches up to you, you die. If spam tippy toes away and just spams you out, then spam wins. That's kind of how it operates as of the moment. All that makes sense? Any questions on it?
Let me think on that, but as of right now, no. But I'll let you know if I do.
Sure. All right, we'll see. I accidentally stopped the stream there. So now, in terms of when should you be swapping? Well, you're going to be on different characters dependent on what your team is running, what the enemy team is running, and also like what map you're on, because different compositions are good on different maps. So think, for example, on a map like Watchpoint Gibraltar, with lots of high ground mobility. Usually dive is going to be very good on maps that have lots of high ground capabilities, because you can instantly jump all the way up to the top of it, whereas other characters need to take the long stairway routes, right? So dive is going to be very, very good on those maps. Then your brawl is going to be really good on maps where it's very confined in close quarters. So think like blanking on the name, King's Row, right? Think like King's Row. Dive or brawl is going to be very, very good there because it's very, very, very close and clustered, lots of choke points, things like that. Then spam is going to be very good on wide open maps, very spread out. So think like Junkertown. It's very wide open maps, so therefore spam's gonna be really good on those maps. And then there's some maps that are kind of in between that they're not really. You kind of have two good comps, things like that. You'll have points of maps that are better for other different things, right? Now also you probably want to sync up with what your team's going. If your entire team is on a spam composition and you are on Reinhardt, then you're going to be trying to push while the rest of your team is going to be trying to sit back. You're trying to push and play fast while they're all sitting back and playing slow, which may not be a very good recipe for success. Right, you're going to push forward to be all the way inside their team, and then the rest of your team is a mile away from you. So, therefore, usually I'd recommend try to sync up with what your team's running. If they're running a spam comp, try to sync up with them and run a spam character. If they're on a brawl comp, run a brawl character. If you're on a dive comp, run a dive character. Then on top of that, pay attention to what they're running. Sometimes they like, you kind of want to be careful that you can kind of pick counter characters. Like, let's say, trying to think, sometimes you can mirror them if you feel like you need to mirror them. I'm trying to think of an example here. Like, let's say they're on like Roadhog, you can pick Orisa to kind of shut him down, sort of deal, because Orisa can do a pretty good job of that. Things like that. If they're on Monkey, maybe you can pick Roadhog to shut him down, right? Kind of think through like the rock paper scissors of it as a very rough rock paper scissors. This isn't an end all be all. Dive is going to mildly counter a spam. Spam is going to mildly counter a brawl, and brawl is going to minorly counter a dive. Though at the moment, do note that from my understanding, brawl is kind of like the current meta. Okay, all making sense once again.
Yeah.
Yep. So, if your character's not working, take a look at or at the very beginning of the round, take a look. Okay, everyone's on these characters on your team. It's this map. that usually you're gonna at the beginning of the game you're picking based off of what map is it, what characters is my team running, and that's how you're going to assess your character. If you end up wanting to change, that could be based off of what they're running. It could be that the point you're on a different part of the map. Could be that your teammates changed their characters and now your characters doesn't sync as well. Things like that. All right. Let's start to wrap up here because we're running out of time. Let's go over main points, do a quick review, and all that jazz. And then I'll have you got notes, right? I think, yeah. I'll have your notes anyways at the end as well. Ability usage, Sigma, little bit of work, right? Tiny bit, not too much on Sigma. Main thing though with Zarya, focus on bubbles. Pretty important getting those down. Big thing was aggression wise, you'd push me to, right? You wouldn't have bubbles down. That is gonna be pretty important. Besides that, not too much of an issue with the other abilities. Think that's pretty much it on abilities. Overall, Sigma, not low to medium. Doomfist and Zarya. Doomfist probably more around the medium. Zarya possibly even a little bit higher than Doom, right? So maybe high, let's say somewhere around that. Then you have ultimates. Doomfist, I didn't see too many issues. Zarya, didn't see too many issues. Sigma, yeah, ultimates, not too big of a deal. Low priority for your work on, not too much. Positioning. Make sure that you are. Actually, I get. Yeah, it's fine. Make sure you are using cover. Good positioning is usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover. Take high grounds. High grounds are fantastic for you as well. As long as it's relevant to the fight. No man's land and choke points hold at the back end, not at the front or the middle. And if you're pushing through them, try to push through fast and use cover. Sigma, play to your range, right? Back up away from the Reinhardt and play where you're out of reach of him. Really just go in, unless the kind of positioning dictates it. You're trying to get max range on him because the more space, the more the merrier on the space, right? You do the same damage from 20 meters as you do from 10 meters, so why not do 20 meters? Unless the high ground is within 10 meters of him, right? That sort of thing, right? I think that is mainly it. Overall positioning was pretty high on the list. That one was either a higher end of a medium or lower end of a medium high, somewhere between that. Then we have your mechanics. I didn't really think that there was that big of a deal, which is good because I think last time we talked a lot about mechanics. In mechanics, target priority, keep that in mind, right? Shooting at the right targets. I think you're having a little bit of problems with that, right? Sure, the easy things to shoot at. Besides that, I don't know if there's too much else in there. So overall, that's a low to medium, maybe higher end of that. And then comes finally, let's see what was the last thing there. Awareness and slash aggression, because these are very linked together. You can't know how aggressive should you be if you don't know what's happening around you. Awareness, pay attention to your health, request healing when you're low. Pay attention to, you should be at a very minimum pressing tab once between every single fight of the game, because that gives you info. Did they swap characters? Did we swap characters? What ultimates do we have? As we just discussed, team composition dictates your play style. You should be playing differently based off of what they're running, off of what you're running, so it's important information for you. So pay attention to that. There's some odds and ends in there, but I don't think that it was that terrible. So overall, and then next, though, comes the aggression part. I think you did a decent job of paying attention to your surroundings, but then aggression, knowing what to do, was probably the bigger problem. Think of it as if it's on a scale. 0% passive, 100% aggressive, 50% neutral. Adjust up with advantages and opportunities. Adjust down with disadvantages. A lack of resources and danger. And that's probably the one to work on. That bumps awareness slash aggression probably up to trying to think. Probably around the same area as positioning. I'd think like lower end of a medium high, something like that. So to put it all in order, number 1, why don't we say? I'm trying to think here. I think awareness / aggression, primarily just getting the aggression down. Then next, positioning. Then thirdly comes probably ability usage across the different characters. That mixed up slightly across the characters though. Then mechanics, then ult usage, kind of being at the end there. Any questions?
No, no questions.
Okay, well, sounds good with me. I'll get you